thinking back to your first appearance on the podcast. Now you're a pro, episode 2 on the podcast. um,
Hmm.
so great. And I was also just sort of thinking about how much has changed in both our worlds, but
Mhm.
specifically what things we were talking about the last time you were here versus all of the things that have evolved in that time to now. And I can't wait to dive in.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm also similarly excited to dive in. Side note, you didn't mention that we have gone stand-up paddleboarding together, with I would say limited success. Let's be honest.
Yeah. I feel like maybe we'll have to share some background tidbits in our Instagram stories
Yeah.
with the launch of this episode, just to keep it all real and let everybody know that no one has life all figured out.
No, that is
Specifically
100%
on
true.
the paddleboard. Yeah.
Yeah, on the paddleboard. So yeah, sorry, I just didn't want us to not address that because that
No,
we
I love
would
it.
that.
That was a really hilarious and funny day.
Yeah, that was good.
Um, so good. Okay, so my friend, you have done what lots of people dream of doing and never follow through on, and I'm so proud of you for that. I think sometimes it's easy when you are like transitioning into a new career or even just having that like budding dream of what else could possibly be and actually leaning into that and not just leaning into that, but really taking action steps to make that happen. A lot of people get stuck in that what we wish would happen, but never actually follow through on it and sort of are just like, wah, wah, like I want this to happen, but do I really have the motivation or the energy or the skill set or the whatever? We tell ourselves all these stories about why maybe that couldn't happen, but you've gone and done it. So I really want to talk, first of all, just reintroducing you and yourself and your story and kind of what led you to make this sort of big life and business career transition from corporate world to where you are now.
Yeah, I mean, where to start? I think I was always somebody who would watch, like I've probably seen Eat, Pray, Love, that movie easily 15 to 20 times. I read Wild, I watched Wild, any kind of like woman going through struggle, woman finding herself, woman finding success. Like that was always so inspirational to me. I loved those stories, but I could never honestly figure out the steps. I could never figure out what's going to take me from where I am to where I want to be.
Mm.
Um, for me, it was really a matter of taking the first step and not knowing what was going to happen in the future, like truly. So, just to maybe back up, when we last spoke, I was doing tax accounting full time. Plus, I also was doing my wardrobe styling on the side and was having, success in my career and enjoying a little bit of it. But I wasn't loving what I was doing. I didn't feel passionate about it. I was always kind of like living for my next vacation. And I started to realize that at the time I was 37 and I was just like, frick, there's got to be more. There's got to be something else for me because in my previous role, I worked with entrepreneurs who like were lit up and excited about what they were doing. Not just like one day a week, but like literally I could email them on Saturday. They'd write me right back. I could tell they were excited to talk about their business. And I'd just be like, what the? That's weird. But I knew I wanted that. So I knew kind of where I wanted to get to, and I knew where I was, but it was very much like, I don't know what the first step is. And then it sort of seemed like life just, I want to say, fell apart a little bit. It was during the pandemic, early 2021. I had a really significant relationship end with a really great guy, but it was just like, yeah, it was a natural thing. Some things went down at my job that I was just like, it no longer feels like an alignment, like I'm in alignment from like a values perspective or an
Mm-hmm.
exchange perspective. It just felt like there was some, yeah, I was just not feeling it anymore. And a couple other personal things that happened. And I was just like, okay, this is not working. I need to make a change. And if you know me, Kim, what you do, it's either like 0 or 100. There's no real like in between. I'm either going to like really do the thing or I'm just going to complain about it for like literally years. So I did the thing. I left that position. My previous full-time job, had been there for a number of years, been in like the corporate world for well over a decade. And yeah, June 4th, 2021, I left that job and I literally had no plan. All I knew was I'd saved up about $40,000 in my TFSA, like a good little person. So I had money for about 6 months to live on. That was kind of like, I'm quitting. I have some cash. I don't know what's coming next. So obviously, what did I do? I went to France. Like, what else do we do?
I was going to say, is there any other decision of what needs to happen when you're in this spot? So before you keep going, had there been anything in your life previous to this big decision that felt as big a decision as this had? I feel like that's always the piece where I get questions from women who are trying to make decisions, and whether we're working together professionally or it's just somebody that I know personally, there's always this, but how did you, and I mean, you very eloquently described how you had saved and made this possible. If you had been not having any of that, I think the story would have been very different, because would you have maybe given up a solid paycheck with nothing in reserve and thrown it all up? Maybe some people do, but you know what I mean? Like, chances are probably not. So you definitely did prepare, even though that maybe wasn't what you were preparing for at the time when you were saving. But had you had something else that had sort of like, that you felt comfortable just somehow getting to the point of deciding that everything was just going to be okay?
Um, I wouldn't say that there was one like lightning bolt moment, but excuse me, leading up to this decision, I had been working one-on-one with a business coach, really intensively for, I want to say 4 or 5 months. And she every month would give me these customized meditations. And a lot of those meditations were around themes of believing in myself, trusting that I have, something of value to give to the world. Just knowing that I could create success and money for myself and that I didn't need to rely on somebody else to be the source of that for me. So I had done a lot. Like I would say, I never missed a day. I did those meditations probably 2-3 times a day sometimes, which was maybe too much, but I was super committed to self-development because I knew that like I wasn't happy in my life. So I wouldn't say no to answer your question, Kim. Wasn't like a lightning bolt moment for me, but it was a sort of gradual, like through doing those meditations, through going to those sessions, always doing my homework, I was building this sense of self that knew that success was inevitable. Like truly, when I left my job, I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew like to the core of my being that I was going to be successful. And like, there are some things that I can say now too. And I said something wild to my coach last week and she's like, wow, you're really rooted in that. And I'm like, yeah, when I'm certain and I know something's going to happen, it will happen. And so I would say, yeah, probably those meditations were the most supportive thing to me. Yeah.
That really just goes to show how listening to our gut and our knowing, whatever you want to call it, versus the voices in our head that tell us many, many things throughout the day. We talk about that on the podcast a lot, just sort of like that difference in being able to understand when you're hearing sort of your head voice versus your heart, gut, soul voice. And I think that's so amazing that you were able to realize for yourself how you had to practice to maybe hear that voice clearer through meditations or whatever anybody wants to do that connects with themselves. There's no right or wrong way, but I love that was sort of, that you felt so confident in that, especially me knowing you. And I think probably most accountants get labeled like they would be planners. They like to know what's happening. They're very linear. There's a reason why you're really good at that. But to not know and to just actually be okay with that, that's like a huge transformation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think looking back, I'm like, wow, that was gutsy.
Way to go, me.
Yeah, a little bit, honestly, but I can't imagine any other life for me right now. Like literally booked a trip. I'm going to go abroad on Saturday and it's just like, yeah, that is my life. I'll still be working for my clients. I'll still be, supporting them as much as possible. And like, and I'll be in Italy. You know what I mean? Like, I just feel
Yeah.
like I can't imagine another place for me right now. This feels good. This feels very grounded. So, and I mean, similar to you, Kim, like you use your gut all the time. I would call it
Yeah.
intuition. I would just call it that. But you've had success doing that as well.
Well, yeah. And I think it's one of those things where it's hard to believe it when you haven't ever tried it. Like, I think that's where some of the skepticism comes from for people that are like, well, what do you mean? And I think there's also a little bit of this like misinterpretation of what intuition or knowing or listening to that is, where it doesn't mean just sitting back and doing nothing and waiting for things to come. It's trying to find that balance of feeling like sometimes I've pushed too hard and that's caused the averse reaction of what I want not happening because I'm not letting things just happen naturally. I'm trying to do too many things that are actually interfering with what should be happening, unbeknownst to me sometimes. And then other times, there is this sense of sitting back. So it's kind of finding that place, but listening to your intuition every step of the way of like, you and I talk about this, what is the next right step? That has been like my motto for the past, probably since the pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
of just leaning into being okay with not knowing, which is my natural tendency to want to plan ahead and want to know what's going on, but recognizing that really cool things can happen when you just let the next right step be the thing that you're looking to.
Uh, yeah, I mean, 100%. I think perhaps another way to come at this conversation is to say that for me anyways, owning a business is very much like a balance of my masculine and my feminine energies.
Mm.
The masculine being more of the like outward, go get it, be aggressive, results oriented. I do this and I get this,
Mm-hmm.
just be automatic, right? For me, it's far more challenging to actually like be in a feminine energy. So in that trusting space, in that space of I receive because I'm worthy. We are all inherently worthy. Um, and I don't know about you, but I definitely feel like it's a daily dance for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always trying to figure out, okay, so then the masculine to me comes really naturally. So oftentimes if I'm like struggling to figure out, okay, well, what would the feminine version of Tanya do in this situation? It's usually
Mm.
just like the opposite,
Yeah.
right? Just so I don't know, for example, like for the longest time, I was setting my alarm in the morning. And when I left my job, like I had no commitments. I had nothing. And I was still setting my alarm for 5:45 every morning. I was like, frick, why am I doing that? That's so weird because I'm waking up to this loud alarm. I'm feeling kind of like frantic as my day starts. I'm doing like my success habits, which we can talk about in a bit. But like I'm starting my day and I'm feeling panicky already. And so I was like, what if I just, set the intention that I would love to wake up at 6:30 tomorrow morning? What's going to happen then? I'm not going to set an alarm. I'm just going to, try my best to wake up at that time. Well, surprise, surprise, body naturally woke up and I wasn't frazzled. I just kind of was like, all right, I'm going to start my day now. I'm not going to look at my phone right away. I'm just going to kind of,
Mm.
enter the day. And for me, that was starting the day in a much more sort of grounded feminine space because I wasn't like reacting right away. I was just calmer. I was more flowy and I don't know, it felt good. So that was like a small thing for me. Kind of again, balancing the masculine and the feminine. I give you a million examples. But I think it's actually really important as business owners. And I think as women, I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but certainly I have seen a number of people who do have an issue getting into that feminine energy. And that's
Mm-hmm.
actually sometimes the secret sauce because there is power in our femininity. There absolutely is. You know this, but like all of the clients that I work with are female because I really believe in supporting women. I think that we have been overlooked to some extent in the past. And I think a lot of like traditional business consulting practices don't focus on women and their unique needs. And so that's what I've tried to kind of build. Um, but yeah, I kind of think that intuition and feminine energy is a little bit of a secret weapon we have.
I agree. Even though we all have this feminine energy, I think because the world generally, and it is evolving, but the world is created in a very masculine way. Like the world doesn't take into account um, women's cycles and women's like what happens to a woman every week for a month, you know, like it doesn't take into account for that. And it's nobody's responsibility to take account for that except for ourselves. But when you don't know what you don't know, these are things that I've been learning as well, of just recognizing that it's a bit of a practice to even understand what my body needs, mentally, physically, all of the ways, emotionally, in order to be able to show up, because it naturally, me too, leans more towards masculine, because that's what we've been taught. That's what we've been told is how a business is supposed to be run. It's like this. You work 9 till 5, 40 hours a week, every single day. That's what we've been taught. And that's what we base our normal on, what it is. For me, that isn't my normal anymore. But that is how I started out as an entrepreneur, thinking was normal, surrounded by people who weren't telling me anything different either. So I think, yeah, learning all of this is a huge piece of just, it all just kind of comes back to just knowing yourself more, because there is no right way to create your life or your business. Like there just isn't. There's a right way for you, but that doesn't mean it's the right way. So I love that there's just this ability to choose your own adventure, almost, you know, like those books. Remember those? Just like flip to page 40 and decide that that's where you're going to go. And then be like, oh, no, don't like that. Back. I'm going to choose the other road instead. There's just always that as an option. So from where you are now, so you've alluded to this, so I want to like fast forward now. So you made the decision, of course, you just head off to France. Why not? Here we go. You know, of course we can do this in France. Then you start making some decisions. You've given yourself this like financial 6-month window of like, oh boy, I'm going to have to change a few things in my life in 6 months if I am not doing anything else to bring in any money before then. So you have this like decent sized window ahead of you that you're now just looking. So you're looking into the future. How did you then take everything that you knew and learned as an accountant and as all of the service offerings that you offered in the corporate world that you were in before, and somehow transpose this in this new feminine way to your new world of executive business coaching?
I mean,
like, I'm guessing you just snapped your fingers and it just like all came to you overnight, and the rest is history. Podcast episode over.
Yeah, right. No, I'm a very impatient person. So not knowing how this was all going to play out, almost like it was really, really challenging for me. And so that's why, like, I just want to be careful with how I choose my words here, because I don't want it to sound like it was easy or like it was without struggle. I had immense sort of personal challenges over the last 12 months. But I would have to say, on the business side, I guess the first thing that I did was, when I came back from France, I just remember thinking, something I really, really like doing is strategic planning. I did a master's degree. After I finished my accounting degree, I did a master's, and I remember in the strategy classes, I was always doing very, very well. I got really good marks, and it just came naturally to me. And I remember kind of trying to explain some things to classmates one time, and they just didn't get it. And I'm like, oh, okay, interesting. And then I also remember, like, back in my previous position, there was a lot of, as I moved up in the organization, I got to be a lot more involved in strategy setting and sort of big picture thinking. And I realized again that this was something that came really easily to me, but, you know, people that were making 7, 8 figures around me were struggling with this. And so I did kind of see that this was an area that I really, really enjoyed working in. And it's not specifically accounting focused, but there certainly is a big element of finance in what I do. And so I honestly was just like, I'm kind of interested in doing strategic planning from more of like a feminine spiritual perspective. So I knew of a couple of people who I thought might be interested in that. I literally sent some emails, Kim. I had scheduled 4 Zoom calls, and the emails basically said, hey, I'm thinking of doing this. I don't really have it planned out, but would love to have a conversation with you about, you know, what this would look like if I were to help a business owner like you. It wasn't intended to be a sales call, because I truly was just doing some research. And I do want to say I was very intentional to check in with myself at every step of the way to make sure that I wasn't just building another 9 to 5 that felt like a good idea, or that I knew that, oh, yeah, I can for sure make money if I do this, or I've seen such and such do something, so I'm going to do something similar. She's doing well. I'm going to just copy that. So I was really intentional every step of the way to be like, how does this feel in my body? Do I feel grounded? Do I feel excited about this most of the time? Not like 100%, but like most of the time. And generally speaking, am I like burnt out after working on this in a bad way? And so if I was able to kind of answer those questions, then I was like, yeah, I can keep going. So to answer your question, I had those 4 kind of like, I don't know, researchy type calls with people. And then 2 of the people on those calls were extremely excited about working with me and signed on right away before I even had a program. And again, I would go back to the fact that we kind of skipped over this, but when I was in France, I just did things that were fun.
I'm imagining some cafes and some croissants and la di da di da.
Little bit of wine, maybe like a
Yeah,
glass or 2.
sure.
There's lots of nice French people as well, so I had some fun there. I don't know. I really like kind of, I would say for like one of the first times in my adult life anyways, I just like focused on pleasure. And really every morning I was like, I this was my homework from my coach. She was like, what can you do today that is fun? And that,
This is my favorite only because I know you so well, but this is my favorite because this is what I talk with my clients about all of the time too. The fact that we have to reteach ourselves how to have fun and how to have joy is it's a beautiful thing that we can do this. But the fact that we are at places where we have to relearn that should tell us something about how we have been living if that feels foreign to us.
yeah. Oh yeah. It's revealing, it's instructive, it's all the things. I just didn't know how to do it anymore because again, I was so used to living in this very corporate world where my days were, planned out 6 months in advance. I knew what my meetings were.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, that was my life. And so I was going from that world of like incredible amounts of structure to literally nothing. And so when I had, no structure, I was then creating a structure. I was like, well, I
Yes.
journal at this time. I have to think
Right.
about what my potential business could be at this time. I need to like see this person and have like a good productive networking lunch. Like I was just again recreating a 9 to 5 that just resembled what I'd left essentially. There was no joy in it. There was no love. There was no place for my heart in that. And so yeah, after I had those calls, I got a couple clients that way, which was unexpected but fantastic. And I put together a bit of a program. And then I remember I held just a little webinar, excuse me, on bookkeeping basics. And it's so funny because I'm not trained in bookkeeping. Like I did corporate reorganizations, mergers and acquisitions. Like I was a transactional tax advisor that like helped businesses grow. And all of a sudden I was teaching bookkeeping and I'm like, do I even know how to bookkeep? But whatever. I did it because it really felt like something I was excited about. And I had to like learn some of the little nitty gritty things, which is fine. But I did it and I got 2 more clients from that. And so all of a sudden I just had 4 clients just show up. Um, and I can tell you it's only because there was alignment in what I was doing. That's why clients come to me very easily then and now, because before I talk about an offer to my community, to my friends, to anyone, I am so sure in my body that this is something that I can, bring to my clients. It's going to be a no-brainer for them. They're going to sign up because they're going to be able to feel it when we're communicating about it. They'll feel my confidence in this offer. And to be honest, I don't ever have a sales call with somebody who I don't think is a great fit. I will turn down a sales call if I'm like, no, I don't think you're quite where I need you to be. And I mean, like we worked together, Kim, like you were where I needed you to be. And because of that, like you saw some great results. But not everybody is kind of as open and I would say malleable and maybe trusting in themselves as they need to be. And so anyways, for the people that are, certainly when I'm coming to them and I do have alignment with what I'm offering, it becomes very, very simple to then get a client because you almost don't even have to try. And I hate to say it, like I don't want to be flippant about this because sales, there's an art to creating a community and building relationships.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you are so excited and so on fire about what you're doing, like people they're going to buy from you. You're always going to be full you're always going to be having, really great months. So,
but I think that's one of the things that I learned. We did work together. And that is one of the things that I learned, I think, the most about myself through my process in working with you and throughout this past year is that it doesn't have to be so hard. Like there's the word ease is something that you and I talk about a lot, of just that there's this ease of, and what you're describing in that is, I think so often that right there is the missing piece. It's sort of like this, why am I not getting the clients, or why are the right people not coming to me, or why are the clients I'm working with so annoying, or why is this not lining up, or, like we have all of these like thoughts about whatever is going on in our life, or because this is to me very life specific as well as business specific, because this is like the same kind of energy that has to happen between people that you have in your personal life or your business. But just that thought of, what if I was so confident about what I'm putting out there and it felt so easy for me to put it out there, like what you're describing, that it had this effortless to it. People feel that. You can tell. I don't think, even if you wouldn't consider yourself to be an intuitive person, I think most people would have the ability to kind of feel if somebody that is around them is not happy with how things are going, or feeling the sense of like frustration in something, or feeling like they maybe wish they weren't there right now. We've all had experience like that personally and professionally. And I think if you are not aware of that for yourself, that's where I think struggle number one comes from in business. But I think we often miss that part. And then we get all the way over here and just see the struggles with what is in our current world, and then blame it on that, rather than the piece back here of like, oh, wait, I didn't ask. Like muscle testing is something that I never called it muscle testing. I felt like I had done similar things like that in my life, but I didn't call it that. And you reintroduced this concept to me of like muscle testing, which just what you described about sort of this feeling in your body at each step of the way as you were leaning in. And I do it all the time now with things that I do. I talk to my kids about it too, of just getting them to trust their intuition and letting them feel like they can trust it, and that there's not somebody else, like even me, around them being like, no, you shouldn't do that. I want them to know if they should or shouldn't do something based on what feels right for them, even if it's a mistake. If it feels right, but it ends up maybe not being the right thing, that's okay. And I want them to know that they can trust and resolve whatever decision is made. And I think sometimes we lose sight of that as we get older because we're not practicing it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
100%. I love a lot of what you just said. Actually, I love that you're teaching that to your girls. That makes me so happy, because like I learned about muscle testing and intuition as like a 35-year-old woman.
Totally.
But actually, I think I had a really, really strong sense of intuition when I was younger. I just like ignored it once I went into the corporate world. So that's not ideal. I want to say though, I want to like dispel this idea that there's somehow like a right and a wrong decision. And you kind of alluded to, I think you're in agreement with me on this, but if you choose route A, it's probably going to be hard and you're going to learn. If you choose route B, it's probably going to be hard and you're going to learn. There isn't like this mythical idea of that there's one way to do business right. And I think that it's really important, especially like as business owners, that we, I don't want to say like let go of this idea of failure, but maybe like demystify it a little bit.
Yeah.
I think reframing circumstances can be really, really helpful. Like I can be really honest. I lost 3 big clients in June of this year. And so my revenue in July and August was about $7,000 or $8,000 a month. That's not very much money. That was a significant drop for me. And I was like, holy bleep, like what's going on here? Am I doing the wrong thing? What's happening? And at the time I was like, oh, I really failed those clients because they didn't renew. They didn't want to continue working with me. And I really took it personally. However, what I didn't really realize was happening was there was this huge clearing of space happening in my life so that I could bring forward my 7-figure CEO program, which started in September of this year, which I fully sold out. And so now I've got, $30,000-$40,000 a month coming in every month. And it's like, it's secure money. It's good. It's there. But I had to really work with myself to not see those summer months as I'm doing something wrong. I've failed. I'm not seeing the financial results. I'm the money mindset person. That's kind of my thing. I'm really good at making people lots of money.
Yes,
That's kind of the
are.
goal.
Yeah,
and then when I saw my revenue dip below 5 figures, I was just like, well, that's interesting. And I'm hesitant to even talk about it, but I think it's useful because I think as service providers, we will see, highs and valleys, and that's just kind of part of the game to some extent. But what needs to kind of remain consistent is trusting that I think, number one, there's really not a wrong decision to be made. You're going to learn either way, but also kind of like releasing and surrendering to whatever does happen and realizing that, the value I'm assigning this circumstance today is maybe not like the absolute truth. Maybe this summer wasn't a failure for me. Maybe I was, resting a little bit. I'd come out of a pretty bad personal relationship. So I needed time to rest from that, recover, do some work on myself. And I needed to really launch this 7-figure CEO program, which was a huge undertaking to launch. Like it was, dozens of hours. So I would not have been able to do any of those things had I had a full client slate in the summer. So again, it's kind of reframing, circumstances when they maybe present and you think, well, it really makes you question what you're doing. But no, maybe everything is like working out exactly as it should.
Yes, that's exactly it. I love that you shared that because I've been talking with so many, this conversation keeps coming to this topic lately with the people that I'm chatting with of just sort of this like dark side of business, like not dark side, but this like side of it where it would be hard to share that you lost 3 clients, hard to share that things were feeling like you felt like you were failing, hard to share that like your revenue wasn't where you wanted it to be. And sharing about that, like to me, I just feel like there's this openness that if we were all just more able to be open in ways that felt right for us, like it should feel right. Not that you're oversharing if you don't want to, but just being able to be honest about what it is that we need. Like if we are in a business and we are not making as much money as we want to be, let's share that. You and I talked about that all the time. And in our coaching, we talk about that in our friendship also, but like it's just being able to say that, like, I want to make more money. Period. There doesn't need to be a because or a but or a like blah, 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 every other roadblocks that we put in for ourselves, but just getting to a place of actually, I think a lot of people, and I go through ebbs and flows of this also in my business, even though I've been an entrepreneur for a long time and I'm kind of used to those ebbs and flows a little bit. Like that's just a part of my nature. Consistency is just not there. So I have to just be okay with that. But getting to the place of like, I can have my life look like I want it to look, and I can make the amount of money that is required for me to have how my life wants to look. And it doesn't mean that I need to be working 100-hour work weeks and never seeing my children and never having friends and never having a personal life. Like, what's the point? The whole point is finding this ebb and flow of like what it wants to be. And there's also I know a lot of women, I think, feel a little bit like triggered at this idea of like 5-figure, 6-figure, 7-figure, 8-figure, like just those terms even of like, well, am I just a failure if I'm not a 7-figure business owner? Like, does that just mean I'm nothing, And I think that usually comes from our own insecurities of maybe saying, I would like to be making that much money, but I'm not, so I must be a failure, rather than looking at it as, how do I get there if that's what I'm saying I want? Some people don't want that. Some people are content with their whatever they feel is their income, and that's all that they want. And they are not desiring to have more because they want a simplicity to their life and business as well. Like there's no wrong answer,
Yeah. And I would challenge you a little bit because I don't think owning a 7 or an 8-figure business needs to be complicated. I think the decisions get harder. I mean, the stakes are higher. We make different decisions as our businesses grow. But again, I'm going to challenge you on uncoupling those concepts because I don't think that a simple life is separate from a really successful business. Cause I would actually say my life is relatively simple right now. And it's only because I have built it with intention. It is very easy to kind of conflate these ideas of I work a lot, so I make a whole bunch of money. And I would say like most of the population, that is how they see money in abundance.
Right.
So it takes active work to say, no, I'm going to work, 20, 30 hours a week tops, and I'm going to make X amount of money. And it's not that just like saying that is the thing that gets you there. I really think you have to first make the decision to want to build something like that in your life, in your business. Then I need you to start showing up like that. I need to see your schedule. I need to like listen to you. I need to see you on social media showing up in that sort of like authoritative, knowing energy. Like I need to see you embodying it rather. And then I would almost say the physical sort of manifestation or results of that, like it's just inevitable. It's going to happen in the same way that it's happened for me. It's going to happen for you, right? And it is happening for you. And so I think just, uncoupling again, that idea of I have to work really hard. My life is really stressful. Things so complicated, but that's the thing that gets me 7 or 8 figures. No, friend, like, no. In fact, if you're doing it that way, like I wanted to take a step back. I want you to have a month where you only make $7,000 a month, because I need you to have a bit more time and space to like examine those beliefs.
Yes, you're totally right. One of the things that in full transparency, one of the things that came out between you and me in my session with you a while back was these roadblocks that I had about how growing my business and growing my team specifically, for me, that's something that I have I have some mindset things that need to be resolved for myself about how growing a team equals complication. We've talked about this, this. But that's, I think, where I was coming from in my last point of just feeling like I was at a point where I was like, was it that I didn't feel like it? You know me, and like, I'm willing to put in all the work required to like get to the next step. But it was almost like I didn't feel like I had the energy or desire to face that mindset block that I was having. Like I could name it once it was brought to my attention through our work. And then I could name it, but I was like, yeah, no, I don't know that I do feel like that is the direction that feels right for me right now to grow my team, even though what I am currently doing is going to probably plateau my revenue a little bit, because I'm making decisions that need to be made in order for me to get to a different place. And that was where I felt comfortable sitting for a moment, long moments. And now have been actively working to kind of figure out why I'm thinking that. Why am I dealing with it? And all of that was brought to light because of our sessions together, and like me recognizing that it wasn't that I was saying I felt like earning more money was complicated. It was specifically that I equated a team and having other people work with me felt for some reason complicated to me, even though I know that I can't do it all by myself. I'm drowning when I don't have other people help me.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good distinction. I'm glad that you kind of teased that out, because I think that's how a lot of us feel. I can be really honest and say, like, I have a great team. I have a CPA, I have 2 junior admins, and then I have a systems operations manager, all fantastic people that I work with. I sometimes feel overwhelmed managing my team, and I freaking love managing people. I love being the boss. That's like my strength, honestly. Like I love making decisions for other people and just kind of managing rather than being the one that actually executes. But the fact that you struggle with that, Kim, like so many of us struggle with that. That's not a Kim thing. I'd say that's kind of everyone kind of trying to figure out that balance, because you're right. It is hard sometimes. I wouldn't say that's for all businesses and all service providers. But for many people that are in this service industry, it becomes challenging to grow revenue unless you're willing to do some leveraging, right? And so sometimes that does look like expanding your team. And I think this is something that when I work one-on-one with people now, I bring in my full team. So every one-on-one client that I have gets my support. They get a senior admin person and a junior admin person. So you get all of this kind of support. The idea being that I'm taking all of the business and personal tasks off your plate that don't actually add value to your business, so that you can then like put on your CEO goggles and actually work with me in a way that helps you identify the different things that you could be doing, or maybe the strategic, opportunities that you haven't been able to see because you've been doing way too much admin stuff. So I take that off of your plate so you can really just step into this energy that is, again, unapologetic. It is a big energy, and it is just like, I am here and I'm ready to create and be an expert and be an authority in whatever it is you're doing, right? And so I think it can be challenging to find a good team, but once you have that good team in place, and I think that you're very much on your way to that, the sky's the limit. If I can get some of that stuff off your plate, then it's just like, okay, well, now you've just got more time and more space again to maybe do a little bit of traveling, have a glass of wine. And you would be surprised all of the really like fun, juicy things that can sometimes come through when we get in that feminine space. Just like, okay, I'm here. I'm loving what I'm doing. What's next?
I love that. And again, we talked about this earlier, but just the fact that we have to remind ourselves that having fun and joy in our lives is like a good thing. And those things don't mean, I guess for myself, one of the things that I've learned, and you've really inspired me in this also in the work that we've done together, is just recognizing that it doesn't have to be one or the other. Like I don't have to I can't just have the successful business over here, but then everything else goes to crap. It has to be this like hybrid of like recognizing, like, I think all of us are so like multidimensional. Like I get bored easily, I would say. Like I like sticking to things. I'm not like, I don't give up right away, but I find I just get bored if I'm not doing things that are energizing me in the different areas that I need. I can't just be working on my business and like head in my computer for 40 hours straight. I have to have a fun coffee and a conversation with a friend and snuggles with my girls and good food and wine and like all of these things intermixed in my week. And I think that's when I notice specifically, like for my clients and just friends, as this topic comes up too, of when we start getting into that overwhelm and bogged down, is when we just haven't found, I don't love the word balance, but that, I guess, at least just adding in the things that we do enjoy. For me, business being one of them. I enjoy being in my business. I don't enjoy it when I have nothing else. That's all I'm allowed to do is business. Then I start being like clawing at the walls, like, I need to do something else, take me to Italy with you, Tanya,
Yeah, 100%. And I would say the fact that you were able to realize that about yourself, that you have this desire for variety, I think was fantastic. I mean, you had a number of wins since I've known you. You've rocket shipped. Let's just be honest. You've done really, really well, Kim. But I think the really beautiful thing that you were able to accomplish, if I had to like look back, and I hope this is not saying too much, I think you were able to come to a place of real certainty and trust in yourself, that if you did stuff that you enjoyed, the opportunities would just simply show up. And it's not that you were sitting back. You're still out in the community. You're still doing stuff on social media. You are actively building an audience, but you had some really beautiful things come through in terms of opportunities that I don't think would have come through in quite the abundant way that they showed up if you hadn't put in so much work to kind of get to that place of trusting that, okay, well, I don't know what steps, 2 through 50 look like, but I do know what step 1 is. And so I'm going to do that today.
Yeah.
And I think that's I don't know, that's a huge win from where I sit, because you haven't just learned how to do some random business technique or theory or whatever. Instead, you've like learned to trust yourself, which you're absolutely right. That's going to spill over into your personal life. It can't help but do that. And your business is going to be sustainable, and you're probably going to love what you're doing, because again, you're always checking in with yourself.
Oh, you're going to make me cry. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. That's exactly what I would feel my biggest win was also. And I think that was the beautiful part about working with you. And I know you do that for all of your clients, is just being a fresh set of eyes for, I think so often, especially as solopreneurs, like someone myself who works on my own, owns my business by myself, even though I have people that do things in my business, it is my business. I don't have business partners. I don't, there's nobody to run past some of the things that just, I'm a external processor. This, I have to talk it out, but I need to talk it out with somebody who can help interpret what I'm processing. Like I can't just talk it out and be like, okay, now, like I need to be challenged, and I need to be like, well, what if you thought about it this way? Just so that there's this fresh, because we can get so stuck in these cycles in our minds of like thinking something a certain way that it's just how we're wired to just keep going in a way that feels like it's working. And sometimes you just need somebody else with a different, you and I have so much in common and have so many differences about us that it was just like a perfect hybrid of, you being able to take your skills and abilities. Lord help us all if I ever need to help somebody with their bookkeeping or accounting. It would just be a downhill slope from there. But those types of things where you could just even talk money in a different way. You could talk relationships in a different way. You could talk clients in a different way. You've just had different experiences. And so I don't know, for me, it was a real game changer. You were the first coach. You're the only business coach I've ever had. And that actually makes me feel embarrassed to say that out loud, because I've been in business for so long. Like I should have, I'm not a person that lives in regret. I'm not a coulda, woulda, shoulda person ever. I'm always with you on whatever the decision you make is the right decision for you. And you're just going to figure it out as you go along. But that is something I wish that Tanya Bud Executive Coaching had existed back in 2003 when you were plugging away, doing your thing, so that there could have been lessons learned earlier. But now I know. And now there are things that I've gotten to experience at this stage in my business that are going to carry me through the next chapter, to different places that I never, ever saw coming, because of the way you pivoted your world and shown up. And I think it's just so cool to see how this like full circle has come around of, I got to receive your gifts because you had the courage to put them out. Have you thought about it like that? That just
No,
kind of came to me right now. It kind of just came to me right now. I feel like that sounds so smart.
Yeah, it does sound really smart. And I just feel like embarrassed, but I'm going to try to receive that compliment because that's really, really kind. I tend to think that we all kind of come into each other's awareness, life, whatever, at the exact right time. So I would kind of challenge you that if, you would have had me as a business coach in 2003, you wouldn't have brought any experience to our conversations. You wouldn't have brought like a pretty active client list to the conversations, and you wouldn't have also brought like recurring revenue, right? Let's be honest, business coaching is not inexpensive. You took a risk by investing in me. I'm not the cheapest person around, fully acknowledge. But you took a big risk and we're like, no, I'm going to invest in myself, and look at what you created, right? So I don't know if it would have been, I don't know.
Love that. I love how you talked about that. And you know what? You're right. I didn't address that at all in this episode, but that was one of the scariest business decisions I've ever made.
Yeah.
Literally was the scariest thing of committing to something, sending over the payment, being like, oh my goodness. It probably helped that I was like traveling when I was making these decisions, and I was open. That's me in my happy place. That's me in my most myself place. But nonetheless was very scary decision, because up until that point, like I do lots of business development and personal development and stuff, but I hadn't ever done anything to that level to date. And it felt very scary. And I can't even count the ways that it has come back tenfold into my life and my business, and continues to have ripple effects from decisions that I made a while ago that just continue to serve me, because I can put myself back into the place of like, I need to choose myself. And that's not a selfish thing to do.
Yes.
Look at us, breakthrough central here.
Can we just put that on loop? It is not selfish to choose yourself. I love that.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, we could have like part 1 through 100 here because there's so many juicy details. Before we wrap up, I'm going to have the links to everything that you um, offer and just people to know you more and follow you on social in the show notes. So follow through and click. Also, just going to note before I ask you our rapid fire questions, please subscribe to Tanya's newsletter. If you delete every newsletter you've ever received, actually, even mine, just like unsubscribe from mine also if you want to, and subscribe to Tanya's. If you can't handle one more, you just need hers. You make my freaking week every time you send out your newsletters. You have just such this. I think what happens to me when I read this, and it's probably because this happened before I even knew you as well as I know you now, but now I read your newsletters even more differently because I know you personally as well. But even before, when I barely knew you, but was getting your newsletters, it's so unexpected sometimes. The hybrids that you make between business and dating and other chaos that happens in life and lawsuits and challenges and personal relationships, like all of it. You just tie it in so perfectly in such a real way. And I know that it isn't your number one forte to put yourself out there like that. And that is something that you have worked really hard on. I know this about you, that you've worked really hard on putting yourself out there in a way that still feels really good and aligned for you, but a little bit more vulnerable than the Tanya that we would have known in her accounting cubicle.
A little bit, Kim. Oh my gosh.
I'm being generous with a little bit, a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
been trying to draw some of these things out of you as I know you more, and you just nail it on every single one of your newsletters. So I'm so proud of you.
I mean, that's really kind of you to say. I think those newsletters started when I didn't have a business, if you recall. Like one of my
I
first
do.
ones was about like me joining Tinder because I needed help getting a PCR test in France. I didn't speak French. And yeah, it just kind of went, I want to say, hopefully up from there. Once I actually had like a business, then I kind of tried to mix in a little bit more like actual useful knowledge for the entrepreneurs on my list. But I really feel like it's important to talk about the in between because I think it's easy for someone to look at, you or me or someone who is successful in this space and be like, oh, that was easy for them, or they've got it so together, or like, why can't my life be more like theirs? Well, read my newsletter because
Yeah.
it's not all smooth sailing. Like I have challenges and struggles. I mean, I talk a lot about the emotionally unavailable men that I have somehow brought into my life a number of times. And for me, there's lessons in not comparing, but rather just kind of noting that things are showing up energetically in my personal life and in my business. And here's how I'm trying to like kind of move through it. And sometimes I share from a place of, I've finished this situation. Here's what I've learned. Other times I'm just sharing about what I'm going through because I know there's going to be people on my list that'll hit reply and be like, me too. And that's
Yeah.
really like, I think the intention with any kind of like, I hesitate to say marketing, that's essentially what it is, but I'm really just trying to build a little bit of a connection with my audience. And I'm really just trying to be honest with them in a way that's going to make them realize we are not that much different. Like, I think one of the big fallacies and things that I bump up against is that some of the people that I've encountered think that there's something fundamentally different about some of these, I want to say male business owners that have had a whole bunch of success in their life. And a lot of the times, yeah, they're smart, but I would say, they probably just bet on themselves. They probably had a little bit of audacity and they probably got lucky. And so there's not a lot that is different about people who are making $1 million a year. I mean, there's mindset things obviously that are different, but like I want to kind of just almost pull back the curtain a little bit and be like, yes, I'm super successful and I'm struggling with these things just like you.
Yes.
So you can also be super successful. Please relate to me because I really like, obviously I don't get paid for newsletters. It's really just a way of me kind of like, again, pulling back the curtain to be like, your life is similar to mine. We're not that different. You also can be super successful. So yeah, I appreciate your like kind words on that because I do feel like it's really important to be kind of open and vulnerable in that way with my community.
Yeah, I love it. And it coincides so much. I talk about a lot, just sort of this idea that joy can simultaneously coincide with hard things. It doesn't have to be one or the other. It doesn't have to be because your boyfriend broke up with you that now your business is falling to garbage. Like, and it doesn't have to be your business is super successful and now you found the man of your dreams. I mean, we're going to get there all together, Tanya.
Let's hope.
But let's be honest, like, I want you to meet somebody fabulous, but I also really love your story. So like, I'm not wishing for you to not meet somebody fabulous, but if the journey has to continue, I'm really happy to be a part of hearing it all.
Okay, fair enough. We can agree on that.
Okay, rapid fire questions. Oh man, we've dove into a lot today. This conversation has energized me. I'll tell you that. Okay. Besides signing up for Tanya's newsletter, you can listen to these next 5 questions and learn a little bit more about her. All right. What, besides paddleboarding, you can't say paddleboarding for this answer because we already talked about that earlier, but what is one new thing that you have tried lately?
I had to think about this, but one new thing that I've tried is tennis lessons.
You're so fancy.
Are tennis lessons? Sorry, that's the plural. Yeah, tennis lessons. So I watched that movie, King Richard with Venus.
I haven't watched it.
Yeah, I was flying back from I don't know where, somewhere, and when I landed, because I watched it and I was like, oh, I'm so inspired right now. And then I just messaged my bestie and I was like, I feel like tennis lessons are in our future. And she's like, yes. And so literally like a week later, we're on the court. Last night we had a tennis lesson. It is so much fun, Kim. Like I'm out there and I'm like grunting and yelling and I have like really cute tennis outfits, as you can imagine.
I can imagine. And that was going to be the second half of this question, even though there isn't a second half to this question. But what are you wearing during these super fun tennis lessons?
Yeah.
Not your old gym clothes.
Not my old gym clothes. I have like tennis dresses, which can be purchased at Old Navy. Yeah, I've got 2 of those. I have a matching tennis dress. I match the ball. I have one that's that color. It's maybe a little bit ridiculous even for me, but it's pretty fun. And then I have special like tennis shorts that are like cute and fun. And I don't know. Yeah, it's a whole thing. It's a subculture. I love it.
But that's part of what makes it so fun, right? It's a whole thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's not just like I'm going to tennis lessons. Okay, fine. Then going home. It's like the whole thing around it. I love it. Mm-hmm. Okay. Here's a good question. What is one thing that people sometimes misunderstand about you that you wish they knew?
I think probably the biggest thing is that people look at me and they think, well, in under a year, you're able to like grow a multiple 6-figure business. So it must have been really easy for you. You did it by yourself. But it's really important for people to know that I don't do it by myself. Yes, I'm a solopreneur, but I've had a business coach, mindset coach, a marketing coach. I have a counselor that I see. I have a house cleaner. I have a house manager. I have very supportive friends and family. When people say like on the Academy Awards, I like to thank blah, blah, blah. I couldn't have done this alone. Like I actually know I couldn't have done this alone. So it's important for people to know that while I'm the only business owner, no day is done solely by myself. I have a lot of support and a lot of like cheerleaders in my corner, and that's what's made this possible.
Love it. What food or drink are you hooked on right now?
I did that 5-course tasting menu at Primal, which is like a local Italian restaurant here with the wine pairings a couple of weeks ago. And I will be back there very soon. It was so good. It's Italian food. So but it's like real Italian food. I don't know. That's what I'm hooked on.
Yum. Okay. So you already answered this. Where are you hoping to travel to next?
I'm going to Italy. So I land in Milan on Sunday morning and yeah, I'm going to do like some hiking, probably some shopping, and then just work. So that is next. I'm pretty excited.
Love it. I'm going to try to figure out how I can schedule some sort of meeting with you so that I have to have your backdrop be Italy while you're there. Can we go on a field trip of some sort? Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Last but not least, what is bringing you joy right now?
I went for a massage 2 days ago, and I must say I felt a lot of joy because I have a desk job, and you can see me like I'm like hunched
Yes, I
over.
know. I'm trying to be like shoulders back, Kim,
Oh my
shoulders
gosh,
back.
I'm the worst. And so I like, yeah, I need to go for a massage very regularly. And I have just a fantastic massage therapist. So every time I see her, I'm like, yes, I feel really good. I'm joyful. It's a
Bring
small thing,
on
but
the
it's
joy.
important. Mm-hmm.
It has all the things. Tanya, thank you so much for being on the show today. This was just the loveliest conversation. I could go on for hours. Next episode will involve wine. Just saying.
That sounds great. Thank you so much for having me, Kim.